My name is Tim Wheat. I started at the center in April of 1996 when I was a bartender at Fridays on Overton Square. I was new to Memphis and I wanted to be involved in civil rights. I wanted to do something with my degree, and actually I needed something worthwhile to do in the daylight hours. I began organizing the center's library and media materials. In those days, it was VHS tapes. Deborah Cunningham, who hired me, also mentored me. Her method was to challenge people. She challenged the MCIL consumers by asking them to travel to the center, even when transportation was their issue. Although the center was only 10 years old when I started, history was an important part of independent living and the independent living movement. My first assignment was to write an op-ed supporting a statue of FDR in a wheelchair at the soon-to-be-opened Franklin Delano Roosevelt Memorial in Washington, D.C. Deborah challenged me to create a website for the center. In 1996, it was new, but the real challenge to me was to describe what we do. 26 years ago, for our website, I wrote, "Historically, people with disabilities have been marginalized in our society, either cared for by families or segregated into charities, facilities, and institutions. The disability rights movement and independent living have struggled to include people with disabilities in all aspects of civic life. But barriers remain in physical accommodations, communication, and attitudes. Today, centers for independent living, such as the Memphis Center for Independent Living, offer comprehensive independent living programs that provide people with disabilities with the advocacy, training, resources, and peer support needed to live independently." I heard stories at the beginning of MCIL in 1985, and although I was not there, it was not a grant writing session. It was a takeover. Easter Seals got the money for independent living services, but people with disabilities in the community knew that they were not run by consumers. The large administrative structure was more interested in safety, complacency, and a cure. It was the medical model. It was a charity. Michael Heinrich from the original Takeover group is still around. They demanded authority. They called for consumer control. And they shouted, "Nothing about us without us." In October of 1985, Access All Areas started as the federally funded Center for Independent Living in Memphis. The mission was to facilitate the full integration of persons with disabilities into all aspects of community life. Disability Connection Mid-South's mission is to advocate, educate, and unite the community. That mission comes from the experience and work that we have done since 1985. On our first website, I explained what the center did as a network of action, information, and resources to assist people with disabilities to conquer the barriers, overcome isolation and independency of people with disabilities. We encourage people with disabilities to work with us to build a new, accessible, welcoming community, to learn from neighbors, or to teach fellow citizens that are struggling for their independence. On the website, I attempted to explain the objective and attitude of the center. MCIL's goal is an integrated community that equally welcomes all members. Something that I hope is not lost in the history of our center is the attitude and philosophy of Deborah Cunningham. On that first website, there was a statement that clearly came from Deborah. The Memphis Center for Independent Living works so that people with disabilities in the Memphis area may live independently. We believe that there is nothing more disabling than pity. That was Deborah. After working in Boulder, Colorado for 12 years at the Center for People with Disabilities, I came back to work with Deborah, and we worked together to describe MCIL and use the same phrase. Please don't get the idea that nothing has changed. While the center has accomplished a lot, Deborah was still focused on equality, integration, and the mission. Before I began at the center, Deborah had protested against inaccessible theaters. They saw her as a fire hazard if she sat in the aisle. The most impressive accomplishment of the center under Deborah's leadership was the Underground Railroad. People who were forced into expensive institutions because in Tennessee, our state did not have any home and community-based alternatives. Deborah helped people with disabilities move from an expensive nursing home in Memphis to their own apartment in Colorado. The analogy was so similar to the Civil Rights Underground Railroad that people understood. The center investigated compliance with the Fair Housing Amendment Act and won a lawsuit against developers who failed to make apartments accessible. Deborah worked to enforce the ADA and sued the barbecue restaurant, The Public Eye, when they refused to ramp the single step into their business. That little case became Deborah Cunningham and the United States of America versus The Public Eye. For 78 days, MCIL supported activists who took over the governor's office in Nashville to support home and community-based alternatives to expensive institutions. Today, about half of the long-term care is spent keeping people at home. Disability Connection Mid-South is still working to make our community more accessible. Take a bus today, and you will hear each stop called out. The transit system did not have that 2 years ago. Called stops is an important feature to help people with disabilities use the bus independently. Disability Connection has worked with MATA for years to implement that system. We are working every day on issues of parking, benefits, accessibility, housing, communication, and transportation. I am proud of the work we do and proud of the history of Disability Connection Mid-South. I feel the attitude of Deborah Cunningham in the work that we do, and I sense the spirit of that group of people with disabilities who started the center back in 1985. Nothing about us without us.